Real Estate Com Dallas. My name is Yulia Brown, and I have very special guests here, Mr. Cord Newman and Mrs. Catherine Newman. So I'm happy to have you guys here. So tell us about yourselves.
Well, we've known each other since 1996, and my mom was her English teacher, and my sister was one of her best friends, so they all hung out a lot together. And I saw her from time to time. I was in college playing ball at the time, so I would come home and see her either with my sister, or I'd go into my mom's classroom and obviously disrupt the class. So it was kind of a childhood thing, but then we haven't really been in touch until social media started becoming popular, and then because my sister and her were still in touch, so they were on each other's Facebook and whatever else. And so then her and I became friends on there again, and from time to time we would have little messages, how you doing, what's going on, that kind of stuff. And then the 5th of September, I happened to be in LA. I had literally rolled into LA about 4 o'clock in the morning that morning, was crashing at my friend Chip's house, and I woke up and there was on Facebook, she had posted something about being kind of sad and she needed to be cheered up. And so I said, well, I'll take you to dinner. She goes, okay. Well, she lives in Coronado, which is San Diego. That's 3 hours south. And she's like, well, you're a long way away. I'm like, oh, that's nothing. I've done like 15,000 miles of driving in the last 3 weeks. So, that's not a big deal. And I actually mean that legitimately. Right now we're at 24,000 something in 6 weeks, but because we drive literally Florida to LA quite a lot, and my sons are in Florida, her sons are in California, but so I went down and picked her up for lunch, or dinner technically, and then I decided, because she said she never had Lebanese food, so I was like, oh, we'll go to one of my favorite places, but it's up in Burbank, so that's 2.5 hours back up the road. So we went back up to Burbank, and sitting there, we didn't actually wind up having Lebanese. We wound up ordering pizza at the Lebanese place.
Oh, wow, that's a turn.
Massively confused, yeah. And it's all the head trauma. So anyway, we were sitting there about 20 or 30 minutes, and I said, I'm in love with you. I don't want to be with anybody else. You want to go get married? And she said, sure. And I said, are you serious? And she said, yes. So we finished the pizza and drove to Vegas and got married the next morning. And on the way to Vegas, we stopped and picked up my friend Chip and his wife, Chris. And they stood with us at the wedding. And we told my parents that morning, sitting outside the Elvis Chapel. And so my parents watched on Facebook, and, a Facebook Messenger. And we got married in front of Elvis.
Wow. That's a story.
Yeah.
Are you guys from Texas?
No, but we're probably going to be here a lot more. My dad was born in Dumas, if that counts. Maybe. But I've lived here off and on different times. I did the movie Walking Tall with Kevin Sorbo here. We shot 2 Walking Talls at the same time. And I co-starred in one with Kevin and stunt coordinated it. And then I stunt coordinated the other one. And fell in love with Texas back then. That was 2006, I believe. And actually the boots I'm wearing I had made here. I got to pick out a snake and have them made, so I kind of love those. Doesn't show up on camera, sorry.
We'll take a picture. We'll definitely show it to our viewers.
But I've always loved Texas, and I wound up being introduced to a friend of mine named Tim Miller, who lives here, and we both had done this event called Fireball Run. And our friend JJ Sanchez is the producer of that. I did the first one and the last one, and Tim had done, I think, season 9 or something, and season 11 was the last. And JJ said, you really got to meet Tim. He's into the car world, and he's trying to build this big project, and you guys should meet each other. And so now we're working on a project called Motor City USA, and I believe we're picking up some acreage in the Dallas Metroplex area. I won't say where yet, but because I don't want to change land prices.
To find out.
But we're picking up a couple hundred acres, and we're building Motor City USA.
Wow.
So we've got that coming up, and then I actually just had a massive blessing in my life. I've always been a huge fan of Mickey Rourke. And I love Michael Jai White for his martial arts, but he's a newer guy to the industry. But Mickey's been around forever, and Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man was one of my favorite movies ever. And my friend Chubb and I used to watch that incessantly in college. And I'm getting to play Mickey's younger brother in a movie in Albuquerque coming up. I leave tomorrow afternoon to go to Albuquerque, and we're filming there for a few weeks. And it's my first starring role in a feature film like this. So
wow, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Pretty excited about it. And I get to take her with me, and she'll get to come hang out and see all the crazy stuff.
The number one cheerleader. I love that.
Absolutely. So, and with our Motor City project, on another note, one of the people that Tim has been friends with a really long time is Richard Rollins. And Richard had a very popular TV show for a long time, and he's got a very popular garage, which she's proudly representing right now.
Gas Monkey.
And Richard's actually going to come into the project with us, or has come into the project with us. We haven't ironed out the details, nothing yet, but he wants to be a part of the craziness too. So we're going to go see him tomorrow and kind of hang out a little bit, and she'll get to meet him for the first time. And so that's kind of cool. But he's a very dynamic personality and a super cool guy to hang out with. So if you get lucky enough to hang out with Richard Rollins, that's awesome.
So obviously becoming a lead role in the movie, that didn't come easy. A lot of people think it's such a glamorous world of being in the movie business, but your journey was rocky, is really underestimation. What was your journey in the movie business?
Well, as I said, I played ball in college, and then I got hurt in college and didn't really know what to do with myself. So my parents moved to Florida, so I moved with them, and I got invited to do a Sears catalog because at the time I was in a lot better shape. And I made a joke to the lady. I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not a model, not this." And she goes, "Oh no, not that." She goes, "This," because I had this 8-pack and was in great shape. And so I didn't know whether to have my feelings hurt or to be proud. It was a really weird moment, but she had me on a Sears catalog, and it was an interesting time on it, which I'll leave that for another day. But I came back not really having enjoyed the whole modeling side of life because it's a little too lewd in some ways. Sears was amazing, no dig on them, but the lady that was the wardrobe lady was a little hyper aggressive with certain things that were weird. So, and it's an underwear catalog, so you can probably figure that out yourself. But anyway, so
she's probably an older lady watching right now. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, little awkward. But I came back and I told her, I said, "Man, I did not enjoy that. I don't want to do it again." And she said, "Well, you want to be an extra in a movie?" And I thought, well, sure. That's got to pay great money too. No, it does not. So it wasn't $125 an hour. It was $75 a day. So it's a massive difference in money. But I went, and within 5 hours of being there, I made friends with one of the PAs, production assistant. And as he was walking away, when we were sitting there talking, I said, "Hey, Topher, make me a star today." And he turned around and he goes, "You know it." And a couple minutes later, he comes over to me and he goes, "Run to that tree." And I'm like, "You run to that tree." And he goes, "No, dude.
You're gonna tell me what to do?
Look, if you get over there quick enough, you've got dialogue, and you can be on because you've got a good look. You have that early 80s, late 70s look, so run over there." So I was like, heck yeah. So I ran over there, and there's Peter and Bobby Farley. It was the movie Something About Mary. And Peter and Bobby.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, and exactly, the hair gel. And Peter and Bobby wound up being really gracious, and they asked me to say a couple words, so it wound up being, what made it to the film was Me Too. And I was sitting next to Ben Stiller under a tree arguing over whether he got the date with Mary or not. And one guy says, "Bet you $50 or whatever," and Stiller says, "Why not make it 100? One guy says, "I'm in," other guy says, "Rock on," and I say, "Me too," and they cut away. And one of the stunt guys that was randomly hanging out that day, I don't know why, we had no stunts, but he had recognized me from when I played ball, and he wanted me to come hang out with them. So I started working out with the stunt guys, and that was back in 97, I think. So that's when it all started, was that movie. And my dad and I had a custom car shop at the time in Fort Lauderdale. And for a couple of years I was acting, and I was in a band then also called 70 times 7. And we did a lot of originals, and we were a Christian band. So we did a lot of original stuff in bars. And that's kind of hard to mix, to go from Van Morrison and all that, and then you play one of your originals and everybody just kind of goes quiet for a little bit. But we wound up building a decent little fan base, and we started kind of building our background, and it wound up being pretty exciting. And at the same time I was doing the movie business, and I had the shop that we'd started. And in 1999 I did a Jeep for a friend of mine who was a big stunt coordinator. And when he came to pick the Jeep up, I'd done an 11 color pearl flame job on it and a bunch of other work, painted it candy, brandy, wine. And when he asked to pay for it, I said, no, just give me a job. And that man, Artie Maleshi, I really owe him a lot, because even though most people pretty much had to mow Artie's yard to get a job, because he was very good at, yeah, sure, I'll hire you, but I think my roof needs cleaned, or I need
maybe my coffee.
Yeah, very much so. And you know what? God bless him. He knew how to get people to work. So, but he made us a lot of money, and he got me in the industry. And I met Glenn Wilder and Mike Curtin, and Mike did a tremendous amount. The reason I was coordinating the films up here, Walking Tall, Mike had been hired to do it, but he was trying to build my career. So instead of him taking the coordinator job, he stepped himself down and made himself the assistant coordinator and made me the coordinator.
Wow.
And gave me the coordinator pay, and Mike really went way out of his way. And then Glenn, who's the guy that started Stunts Unlimited with Ronnie Rondell and Hal Needham. Hal Needham was Burt Reynolds' stunt double, which Glenn Wilder started Burt Reynolds in the industry. He used to take him to Elvis's house, and they'd play football together. And so they all got very close, and then Burt was real pretty, so he wound up not being a stunt guy very long and getting moved into the Hollywood glamour side. And then Glenn also started Lee Majors, which is the Fall Guy and $6 Million Man and all that. And so Glenn really took me under his wing and started showing me a lot of stuff. And every major stunt I did for, I don't know, probably 18 years, Glenn was the phone call I would make to tell him, this is what I've got going on, and, can you help? And he would explain, these are the things you do to make sure you're safe. This is how you execute it. And I did a pipe ramp in a Range Rover off the end of a pier in North Carolina for a show back in '04. And if it hadn't been for the things Glenn had told me, I would have drowned in the truck. But Glenn had a number of safety things in place, and literally every single thing that he said to do, if I would have missed one of those steps, then I wouldn't have been recovered. So I would have been, 26 feet down, 170 something feet off the end of the pier, and just been in the silt, and that would have been it. But Glenn was a brilliant guy. I miss him very much. But he passed away in 2017. So, but he was in his 80s and had a hell of a life. And there's not a single person on the planet that has anything. But he's one of the few people in the industry that when you hear anything about him, it's just adoration. I mean, people adored Glenn. He's an incredible person.
He did right by people. That's for sure.
All the time. And he was always happy and never had anything bad to say about nobody. And didn't matter. He had the craziest stories. He's the one that taught Bruce Lee how to fight on camera when they were doing Bruce's first TV show. And Bruce came down the stairs going really, really fast. And Glenn told him, we can't see any of that on camera. And Bruce was a little bit offended. And he's like, no, I'm not slowing down. This is what I do. And Glenn took him aside, and this is back before dailies were an option. And a few days later, he was able to show him the playback on it. And I don't know the timeline on that exactly, but pretty quickly he was able to show him the playback on that. And then Bruce saw it, and he goes, okay, show me what you need. And Bruce was obviously always a student, brilliant human being. And Glenn showed him and went on to have his career. So
I love Bruce Lee movies.
Me too.
Oh my gosh, I remember growing up back in Russia on all the Bruce Lee stuff. Inspired me going into martial arts and doing kickboxing. So absolutely. So going, let's say 10 years back, what would you do different, or would you do exactly what you had done?
That's a funny question, because I mean, you're not, if you could go back in time with all the knowledge, then I would maybe make a few things different. But quite honestly, my journey, there's been a lot of difficulty, but I probably wouldn't change anything, because otherwise I wouldn't be in the position I'm in. I wouldn't have met her. I wouldn't have the opportunities I have now. So I think all the rocky roads make you who you are. So if you know how to take advantage of those situations, no matter how horrible they might seem, and try to pull the lesson, then, you know, God's telling you something. And so he's putting that stuff in front of you that way. And he wants you to learn it for a reason. So I really wouldn't change anything, because otherwise I wouldn't have the opportunities I currently have.
And it sounds like you have an incredible journey meeting wonderful people. What would you say? Oh,
it's been too long.
Yeah. Just before the podcast was a kiss, now I got to have another one.
That's right. Every moment. That's beautiful. And what would you say 3 people out of your life that you would capture as your mentors, as people that played such a significant, you named a couple of names, but really singling out, can you single out somebody?
100%, my dad. It's without equivocation, my father's my hero. Everything that I measure myself to is who my dad is. My dad's an old Marine who's very, very quiet, very stoic. He's the rock of anybody that's ever known him, even though he's very private. And most people think that they're his friend, but he comes home, and that's it's our immediate family is the only thing that he is concerned with. But that's actually part of it too. He knows how to eliminate the noise in the world, which that phrase is from my friend Reza. Which is probably another major impact on my life. But my dad is, without a doubt, the single most influential human on my life. And I would put my boys into one of those categories, because there's no such thing as understanding what it means to love something until you have kids. And so 100%. Until I had my boys, I thought I loved this person, or I loved that thing, or there is just zero comparison to the moment they are born. The moment you hear that little heartbeat in the tummy, there is nothing that can equate to your kids. And then I would, Artie was a big influence. Glenn was a massive influence. Mike Curtin was a big influence. My friend Reza Dari is a very prolific person. He owns and runs global investment bank in Dubai, and we're the ones that every single thing I do, we're partners in. And he's been a keynote speaker at the World Finance Forum. He's just one of these people that when people think of somebody in the finance world, he is an icon in the finance world. But we can get on the phone and laugh and joke and tell the most absurd stories that I could never be told on a podcast, but we can tell the most absurd stories, and we can laugh about ridiculous stuff, and then we can go straight into a meeting that's about, a $1 billion project, and, flip that switch back and forth. And he's the one that taught me years ago, because I do travel so much and I meet so many people and I'm in so many different places, countries. My friends come from all different walks of life and backgrounds. And when you're a little bit of an empathic person, you take a lot of that on. Mm-hmm. And so I had been letting myself get kind of frazzled in, friends having hard times, or family members, or myself, or whatever. And he has this phrase that I adore, and he's like, it's all noise, buddy. It's just noise. God has a plan. He knows. And here's the thing that's funny. People talk about how we have such deep issues in our country and in the world with race and with segregation and with all these other things, it's just not true. We have a lot of created issues now, and there's a lot of serious problems that need to be addressed and have been addressed and need to continue to be addressed. I'm not turning a blind eye to negativity, but I also think that if we all worry more about the ones we love and stop making problems the minute we step out the door. My dad used to always tell me, if you step outside going, I'm going to have a fight today, you're right. If you step outside going, it's going to be a beautiful day, you might have a guy walk past you, bump your shoulder, be arrogant, everything else. And trust me, I live in the stunt world. We live in a very arrogant community much of the time, and people always trying to test your mettle or challenge your manhood or whatever. But you just kind of have to crouch that down, because that's their own problem. It's not yours. And as long as you don't listen to the noise and you don't take that on, then you're not going to have those problems come to fruition. So you have to step outside of yourself sometimes and go, hey, that's ridiculous. Just ignore the person. That's their problem, not yours. If they're being racist or they're being arrogant or they're being ignorant about something, just who cares? Move away from the situation. Find yourself in another location. And, I grew up in 36 different schools before I was out of high school. My parents moved a tremendous amount. And a lot of that was for a reason that was not nice, that was in our family, outside of our family, but directly affected my sister and I and my parents. So we tried to avoid having those problems. So we would move to avoid the problem. And basically, my brother's mom was a raging psycho, and she would try to make my mom feel threatened towards my sister and I. So when she would find us, we would leave. And so that created a lot of moving. Well, when you move so much, my parents were teachers, you're not going to move from one affluent school to another. You're going to move from one socioeconomically repressed school to another. So I grew up being pretty much the only white kid in the school quite a lot. And I've seen racism on every single side of the spectrum. It has no place in anybody's life. It's not necessary. The thing that we need to look at is this world as like a big patchwork quilt. And if you look at it for the beauty that it is, and you admire your friends for who they are and what makes them different, and you enjoy those different things, then you actually get to have a much more fruitful, much more productive life, because you'll find food you never thought of. You'll find ways to look at things that you never thought of, music you never thought of, point of view you never thought of. It just makes you a much better person to see people for who they are and not what they are. And, I have a friend of mine, James Cheek. I love you, buddy, if you hear this. Him and I like to make people uncomfortable. He's a really big black guy. He doubles like Ving Rhames and those guys. And we'll do stuff specifically to make people uncomfortable. So we'll say things.
It's like, imagine that.
Yeah. So we'll say stuff that's racist to each other that we think is hilarious just to make everybody else upset. Which, in a world where everybody is hypersensitive about that, definitely probably has a better place. But there's also, we're trying to show people it's not necessary to be focused on the silly stuff. We should be focused on the fact that we're all brothers and sisters. We all come from God. We all are here to try to make the best out of our lives. And, I'd rather have friends on the journey than enemies, fighting me on the journey. So that's kind of how I see all that craziness.
Well, it's like happiness is a choice.
That's right. It is.
You can wake up happy or you can wake up negative, and then you attract what you really set yourself for.
100%.
And one of the reasons why I moved to the United States was because sitting in the same restaurant, having so many cultures, like we're here at the Turkish Cafe and Lounge, there is so much going on in the world, but you can't hold, it's like guilt by association.
Right.
Because you this, you that, because you that, then you stand for this. And putting words in people's mouth is never a productive thing to do.
Absolutely.
So you traveled so much. What would you say, places where you went, what captured your attention and what grasped you the most?
I spent 4.5, almost 5 years in Dubai. And one of my favorite things in the entire world was when I was going over there, because of how negative the media and stuff is towards the Arabic culture and the Muslim culture, there was a lot of preconceived notions through some of my family and some of my friends. And I had one of my family members literally say, "I'm terrified you're going to have your head cut off going to Dubai." And
one of the most developed countries in the world.
Right, exactly. But it's not what the media shows. It shows a very different thing. And so when I went there, even me at, I'm 6'1", 240-pound guy, I'm an okay dude. I can handle myself for the most part. If it gets too crazy, I'll just, curl up in the fetal position and pee a little. It's just kind of funny. But if is that a podcast thing? Should we say that? But anyway.
Yes. We're as real as they come Dallas, so we say awesome. Whatever it is to say out there.
So I went over there with as open of a mind as I possibly could have, having all these preconceived notions that have been drilled in, which I preface it that way for a reason, because I went over there definitely having apprehensions. And when I got there, I have never been to a place that is more dynamic in my entire life. It's more culturally diverse than anywhere else I've ever been. And I never met a single person that was really mean or rude or nothing. As a matter of fact, people went out of their way to do things to help you. We would leave our car running in the parking lot because it's sometimes pretty hot. We would leave our car running in the parking lot with the AC on because we'd be in for an hour or two having a shisha and having lunch. And we didn't want to have the freaking dashboard melt. And so we'd go out, the car would still be running. And I'd never had this happen really, but there was rumors that if you ran out of gas, there might be somebody come by, put gas in the car, start it back up so your AC stays running. I wouldn't doubt it. It's one of the most beautiful places with one of the most beautiful cultures I have ever seen or ever been. And it really changed completely my mind on how you look at and how if I walk up to somebody knowing that I'm going to feel a conflict, well, they feel that energy and they're going to feel uncomfortable, and then that creates this divider and this wall. It's better now. You go up, put your hand out. I love you. How are you? Let's have shisha. Let's come to the cafe. And by the way, love this place, Sean. And it's actually one of the reasons why anywhere I go in the U.S., like when I'm in Orlando and I'm home near my sons, I have a place there I go to. It's called Cafe Istanbul. My friend owns it, Gorgon. And it's because shisha, you watch all different cultures, and it's a silly thing to say, but it's such a communal thing. You sit there, you have your shisha, you enjoy yourself, and you're not just eating and leaving. You're relaxing, you're talking, you're making a friend. And I do the same thing in California. I've got a friend of mine out there that owns a place. His name's Danny, and his place is Gitana. I'm plugging all you guys. And but I love that spot. And all of my business meetings, as you've noticed, I have business meetings here when I'm in Dallas. I have business meetings at Gitana in California, and at Cafe Istanbul in Orlando, because you relax and they're not rushing you out, and the waiters and waitresses are used to people sitting for 2, 3, 4 hours and really getting to know each other, and it's not talking about the weather.
Which is Cord's favorite question.
No, it's not. I hate arbitrary conversation. If we want to have a conversation, please let's talk about something that's got intelligence attached, not just what's the weather. Well, if you're smart enough to look at the app on your phone or step outside, you can figure that out. You don't need my help.
So if you're looking for a weatherman, Cord is not it.
Not the one. Not the one.
So let's say somebody is a young guy, he's doing football, or he's just watching this and getting inspired to be like Cord or to be a stuntman. What advice would you give him? Where should he start, and what should he look forward to?
The industry is definitely tremendously different from when I started. When I started, it was 1,000,000% about who you know, and it was real heavily family oriented. There was the Eppers and them that are a huge family of stunt people. Jeannie Epper was Wonder Woman's stunt double. I mean, and not to mention that whole family has an amazing resume and history, and they're just lovely people. But the Levitts are now kind of becoming their own because they've got Debbie, who's probably one of the most spectacular female stunt people on the entire planet. She has 7 Taurus Awards, which is our award show because the Oscars won't allow us in. Anyway,
talking about unfair treatment.
Oh yeah, yeah. If I say I'm a stunt guy and I pay for the ticket to go to the Oscars, I'm not allowed to go. If I say I'm an actor and I pay for the ticket, I can go. They don't allow us in a category. They don't have us there. They completely ignore us. But so Red Bull created this thing called the Taurus Awards like 15, 20 years ago, and now we have our own award show. And SAG has kind of caught up. They've got a couple decent things that they do for us, which is nice. It's one of the few nice things SAG has done for stunt people. But my advice to them is to find somebody that's 50 years old or older that's been in the business more than 25 or 30 years. Don't sit around talking to the younger guys, because the thing that gets a lot of people stuck is they'll gravitate towards people that are like them. So if they're in their 20s, they'll sit around with the 20-year-olds and they'll all talk about whether they should be in the union or not because they work so much non-union. Well, that's a bunch of BS. You need to be in the union if you're going to be guild. You need to be in the guild if you're going to be a professional in the industry. Even though our guild is not good for us and they do terrible things with us, but they are necessary for now for us to be on professional films. You want to be on, Fast and Furious, Transformers, any of that stuff, Avatar. You're not going to do it non-union. So if you're taking your career seriously, you have to be in the union. Guild. Sorry, we all call it union. It's not a union; it's a guild. So I keep correcting myself. But there's a lot of things that they need to do as young people, and they need to be very careful about. You can get caught up in the politics of being with the young people, and it's harder to be taken seriously by the older guys when all of the diatribe you spit is nothing but a bunch of stuff that a bunch of other 20, 25-year-olds have said. So you need to find somebody that's 50 or older that'll take you under their wing. And there's a lot of phenomenal people out there that are spectacular mentors. My friend Scott Richards is one. Joel Kramer is one. Lane Levitt, Phil Tan. These guys are all phenomenal humans who are really solid people, and they will look out for you. I don't know Melissa Stubbs very well, but she's really looked out for people over the years. She's been around a long time, and she's a very prolific female stunt person. So if the ladies or a guy feels more comfortable talking to an older person in the industry, not that you're old, Melissa, I love you, but a person that's been around longer, Jennifer Badger is one of the most impressive stunt women I've ever been around, because she's managed to maintain a marriage for 20 plus years with a husband who's in the industry also. They're going 9 million miles an hour, 20 different directions, and they're diehard faithful to each other. They have a phenomenal family, great children, and they run big shows. So stuff like that is possible. And if you really put your head to it, there's no reason you can't make those things happen. So my advice, to sum it up, find an elder and just get under their feet and stay with them, and pay attention to what they say, follow their advice, and try not to get caught up in the political side of the industry, because that'll just usually burn you out real fast, and you'll probably go do something else.
Tune out the noise.
Yeah, exactly. Tune out the noise. Thank you again, Reza.
So let's say if you wanted to be a superhero, where Halloween is almost here, what would you be if you had that one of those superpowers?
Well, this is going to sound goofy as heck, but one of my best friends in the world is a guy named Austin St. John. You've met him. Austin is the original Red Power Ranger, which I love embarrassing him about. But he's also probably one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. Oh, look, we got background music. This is for you, Austin. They started the music for you. But this is a guy that got ultra famous, and then while being ultra famous, he got out of the industry and he wound up becoming a medic in DC to take care of his family so he could be home. And then he went to Afghanistan and he was a medic with the DOD attached to a group of Marines, and did that for 4 or 5 years. And he's just one of those guys that he divides his time, as difficult as it is, to be a father, to be in the industry, doing the Comic-Cons, and then just being a really solid person. So I would say, if you're going to be somebody, be a Power Ranger.
Be a Power Ranger.
The red one specifically.
The uniform.
That's right, the red uniform. So
Austin's probably like, damn,
I know
Cord.
Cord does it all the time too.
I do. I try to embarrass him a lot because I love him to death and I'm so proud of him. But I really do. I mean, I've not met a lot of people that because people put off a certain persona, but then that persona quite often, especially in our industry, tends to be very fake. And but Austin is not fake in any way, shape, or form. He is exactly what you would expect. I mean, he's Superman from the and Batman from the 60s and 70s. It's eat your vegetables, do the right thing, listen to your mom, and that's it.
That's beautiful.
So
that's absolutely beautiful. And Catherine, how are you looking at the career of your husband right now, like with all these crazy tricks?
I'm a little nervous, to be honest. I did not expect all of this. When we got married, he was just Cord. He was the guy I had a crush on in middle school. I'd seen him, in Something About Mary, and then I caught him in his six-headed shark movie and was giggling about it. Then I marry him, and he's like, "You haven't Googled me?" Yeah. Then I Googled him, and I realized what I've got ahead of me now, and I'm a little nervous, but I know Cord loves me, so we'll figure everything out.
You should have Googled while you were eating pizza in Lebanese restaurant.
ain't that the truth?
I had time. I had about 12 hours before I married him to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, 4 hours to Vegas and then a little bit of time at the casino.
Oh, okay, fine, maybe.
Some people have 12 years and they still don't figure things out about each
That's
other.
true.
So
honestly, for her and I, though, there's no subject that's off limits. There's nothing we don't talk about. I've had previous relationships that have not been good because even as much as we thought we were trying to be honest or whatever, people think in their head, they get all built up, oh, I can't say that, or this is embarrassing, or this isn't going to be. But her and I have literally, and we have some absurd conversations.
Yes, we do.
About stuff that couples maybe shouldn't talk about. But quite honestly, though, all I know is I have never been in love with anybody like her.
That's
beautiful. I've never been around anybody like her, and I've never been in any situation ever in my life that I didn't, within a few hours, want to figure out somewhere to go for a little bit that they weren't at, just so I could have a moment. But we're literally together, whether it's in the truck, driving, doing this stuff, whatever. I've got her in all my business meetings. I want her to know everything. If we're going to do this, here is everything I am, and you can tell me what you want to do, what you like, what you don't like. And if it's stuff you don't like, then we'll figure out how to make that different too. So
you guys are the one now, so
yep.
That's beautiful. That's one of the most romantic stories that I had ever heard.
I love you.
And last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Whenever your journey in the movie is done, or let's say looking at yourself as an older self, what would you like to be remembered by your viewers, by your friends, by your loved ones?
Being honest. That's it. You can love people as much as you want. You can hate them as much as you want. You can have good and bad and indifferent. But if there's one thing that you have to maintain throughout all of life is integrity. And if you don't have that, then really there's nothing anybody can do with you. You can't build a business with somebody that you don't trust. You can't build a relationship with somebody you don't trust. You can't build a friendship of any kind with anybody that you don't trust. So I would hope, I've made a million mistakes. I'm not saying that I've been this guy my whole life. I've definitely had a plethora of things I have done wrong. But I would say if there's anything I would hope that the people that are still close to me would say is that I've been honest.
Wow, that's deep.
So
That's deep. And thank you, Cord. Thank you, Catherine, for being on the podcast today. This was As Real as They Come, Dallas. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, certainly reach out, and we'll be more than happy to answer any of the questions you may have. Thank you.